I'd just like to conclude this little bit with three thoughts. And one is that I think that what these people do, and there's a great project here because it's about drilling down to what are their beliefs, what are their behaviors, what are their strategies when stuff doesn't work. What do they do specifically when patients are difficult? But from my point of view, the things that I think were going on is, one, that each of these people that I've exemplified set an intent. So when they go into a patient's room or they go in the ward, they say, I am going to be there. They may do this consciously or unconsciously. I'm going to be there and there alone for the patient or patients. Secondly, when they get there, they communicate that intent in terms of language, actual language, voice tone, or body language. And then notice how that affects the patient. And then in terms of the outcome, what they want to do is then be very flexible about when they're trying to achieve an outcome, is to change it in order to get something to work. Am I making sense here? So if something doesn't work, what do you need to do differently in order to get that outcome? Yeah? So that's my conclusion about these specific interactions. So just to conclude, the main point I think is framing, is how that initial discussion takes place, and then the second thing is about the execution of fundamentals of care. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment now because there's a kind of second bit, but I'm really interested in your feedback and questions. So, and I want this to be. How are we doing on time? Are we?
We're fine. If you want to do a couple of Q&A.
Yeah, I'd like to just get your feedback because you've been a wonderful audience and you're really locking on to what I'm saying. So thank you. I really appreciate that. You're with me. You're present, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're present with me. Like the same way in which the health professionals were present with me. So thank you. I really, really do appreciate that. So any questions, comments, observations, challenges? Yeah, gentleman at the back.
Oh, that's really nice example, good practice.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could actually sort of put a finger on people you interacted with that you didn't really connect with why that was. Was there actually a little tangible effect there?
Yes, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I think it's just helpful that I just let you know, and it's a long story in itself, but I had a keyhole surgery. I had, a couple of years later, I had keyhole surgery. And it was a complete contrast. It was, I felt like I was on a conveyor belt. I was just a number. I was just the next person on the list. So to answer your question, I think people that and still do, because I'm still part of the system, is when I feel that I'm not connecting with the health professional, it's something about their baggage in their head. It's something about what they're running. So it's about their agenda. So what have I got to do? They're thinking about something else. They're thinking about a row they've had with somebody. They're thinking about an invoice they haven't paid. They're thinking that maybe they're not enjoying it. And that is coming across in their body language to me. So the classic, there was a lady I know who's very humorous in communication. She wrote a book called The Customer is Bothering Me. And then she went on to adapt it to the medical field. And she did a talk called The Patient is Bothering Me. And sometimes I feel those sort of people that you refer to is I'm bothering them, that I should really go away and go somewhere else. But it is something about, and I was going to ask you for something to drop, but if you think about, here are my two hands. So this is my world and that's your world, okay? If I'm in my world all the time, I can't connect with you in your world. I have to, in some way, come out of my world, adjust my internal dialogue or chatter, and focus on you. My attention has to be on you, and then I have to deal with the feedback that's coming back from you for me then to adjust the way in which I'm interacting in order to get the outcome that I want. Does that make sense? If, however, I've got too much interference going on in my head, which will then affect my overall body. So if we think about the expression "I'm down," it's literally like that, isn't it? People walk like this. It's because physiologically what they're running is actually making them feel down. We don't talk about feeling down for literally, because the physiology is down. Yeah? Does that make sense? So they don't necessarily have to be physically down, but their spirits can be down. And if you carry that into a patient's room, the patient will pick it up. Have I answered your question in a very lengthy way?
This is interesting in terms of as a physiotherapist or working one-on-one with the patient.
Yeah.
You get a sort of chemistry that works between.
Yes. Of course.
Well.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it's interesting, why isn't it that it hasn't connected today? What was it that's actually been doing? Was it the patient or me, or what actually caused it to happen that day? So it's interesting when you're talking about the...
I should add, though, I mean, not to put all the blame on you, is there could be something with the patient. So maybe the patient doesn't want to talk, or the patient, and then it's about pacing, really. And it's about playing that back to the patient. I see you don't want to talk today. I see you don't want to do anything today. I understand. Where are you with this? Tell me a bit more. And it's a bit like running. So if you're running too fast in front of somebody, they just feel overwhelmed because they'll just drop back and they'll give up. Whereas if you're running at the same pace, you drop back to their pace. If you think about that metaphor, then the person is then more likely to come into your world. Does that yeah.
I was going to say, I'm really surprised that I totally hear what you're saying in terms of wanting to feel like the person is definitely there for you and all those things. I'm really surprised that you are thinking that maybe people are thinking about other things like the invoice they haven't paid or your personal life. I think as a clinician, what often you're thinking about is, I've actually got 5 more assessments to do today, and I wonder if this person is going to work with me quickly enough for me to get the next thing done. And because I know, obviously there would have been times when clinically you might be thinking of other things, but it is normally focused on the job. It's just sometimes the pressure of work means that you are thinking ahead or thinking, this might take me longer than I thought, what am I going to do, I'm due at a wardround. It's those sorts of thoughts which interfere sometimes.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I'm over. I was using that more as example of personal thought, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's more about, the workload. It's more likely to be more about, but I was just using that as an example of.
From the patient's perspective, you don't know that.
Yes.
From your perspective,
yes.
She obviously doesn't want to be here today, when actually she's thinking, what price does the TTO to get full time? She's got this to do. You don't know that.
Yes. That's how it comes across. Yeah.
I think that's what's valuable. Is that we don't think that's how we're coming across.
Yes.
We expect patients to understand the witnessing.
Yes.
And I
yes.
think,
That's.
And sometimes that's where, especially with traumatic keyhole surgery, that sort of fast pace of quick procedure, bang, 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 and it is.
Yes, that's what it is. Yes.
But sometimes it has to be that for efficiency.
Yes,
but
no, I understand. Yes.
Actually, no.
Yes.
I'm the most important person. I don't care about the person before the person coming after me.
Yes.
I'm here for
Yes.
frightened.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes where the complexities come from, whereby you've got the patient that is thinking that nurse isn't interested.
Yes.
But how could we expect that?
Yeah.
The commission, and so that's where there are going to be tensions. Well, why something like this is good to remind us, actually.
Yeah.
That's what your viewpoint
Yeah. And I think this, I just wanted to add that the thing is, and I completely get this, and I was listening to the Royal College of Nursing report today, and it's just breathtaking what healthcare professionals have to, in terms of resources and constraint and so on. This whole thing about time, I can completely get that. But I think from a patient point of view, the thing that makes a huge difference, if someone walks into my room and they just smile, and if you think about how long it takes to smile, how long does it take? But the impact on that, if you're feeling really poorly, is just so uplifting. It's that. So just to throw out the 2 points, which I think are very good, is that I believe it's not time, I believe it's focus. So that if you're focused, it's something about training that focus. That if you're focused, you can then do little things like smiling, or maybe, putting your hand on their shoulder or something like that, which, if you're feeling so ill and so sick and so helpless, is such a hugely uplifting thing, particularly for the spirit. Yeah. Sorry, you were going to.
It's less a question, more just a comment. But,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think a lot of practitioners and patients find difficult is you were obviously at a point where your world was changing, looking for some degree of certainty.
Yes, absolutely.
Wanted something that you could nail down.
Yes.
And quite often, as a patient, you're looking for healthcare providers to give you that certainty.
Yes.
When they actually don't know.
Yes, no, I understand that. Yes.
But it's fascinating to hear that even in that situation, there are still ways for practitioners to be able to work with someone.
Yes.
To give them enough, effectively saying, I don't know where we're going to go.
Yes.
But maybe we're not going to do this on our own.
Yes, absolutely. It's that collaboration that you feel that someone's with you, that they're going to work with you. And it's that sense of not being alone. I think the thing, if I flip back the film, I think about the scariest thing was as I was shaking in that bed, in that bay, was about feeling very lonely and very helpless. That was the thing. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
Can you want to give that example of how different your experience was when you had the stroke and then when you went back for surgery?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because we can't stop from being busy and having to do things in a time scale. I'm just wondering how maybe using, our communication skills, relating to the patient, say, I understand I must come across like I'm hurrying you, but very sorry, but I am a bit busy. So if I come across like that, so I'm very sorry. Do you think that will be something that would be helpful for a patient? Or do you think that will change how you felt that day in kiosk?
Yes, I think absolutely. I think if that non-verbal that's coming across on your face is then expressed, I think that makes a huge difference. It's like, if you think about our own personal relationships, if someone walks in and they've got a cloud of thunder on their face, and you look at them and they kind of and you say, and then they say, do you realise what's happened? And they tell you, then you're kind of much better with it, aren't you? Because you understand that, they got a flat tire and, their card got stuck in the machine and all that kind of stuff. And you say, oh gosh, you had a really bad day. No, I understand. And it makes them feel better. And probably by you actually saying that makes you feel better because you're explaining it. So in some way, you're changing your state. Yes, I think that it does. Yes, I think it makes you.
Certainly, I know you didn't have sort of the ambulance service involved in your care. But certainly, from our perspective, when you're going into a home, you're answering questions with real barrage. You're really trying to get, because sometimes it's time critical.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes you've got somebody coming on, doing observations on you, or someone else is, throwing questions, and just sometimes saying, "Look, I'm sorry, we're taking from your angles, we're like buses, wait for 8 tours, and then when we come, or actually saying, look, I'm sorry, really sorry, I know I'm asking you loads of questions, I'm getting one-word answers, that's all I want at the moment, very close questioning.
Yes.
But you just say to them, look, sorry, I'm asking loads of questions, I just need to get an idea of what to do. And then get that done. But as you say, smile, touch on the arm if you're distressed.
Yeah.
That does make a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's
at the same time as getting you information. And I think that's quite important too.
Yes, this lady has made a very valid point, is that this whole, and you'll know this from your training, is what is it? Inform and then invite. So you give information, then you ask a question. You give information, then you ask a question. It's so much reassuring than just asking questions. I mean, that is so. It's such a softener when you're having to ask. And do you find that by?
Just have an sorry, I know
yes.
About loads of questions. Because sometimes you just feel like,
yes.
You've got to get this. Is it time critical? And then once you establish that, you can then back off. But just sometimes, just a quick, doesn't take a second.
Yes.
sorry I'm asking all these questions,
Yeah.
because we need to get these.
Yes. So you're informing them as to why you're doing it. Yeah.
Accept that, they answer the questions, they're much more, and they seem to calm down as well.
Yes.
Although
Yeah.
you're still.
Yes.
around that.
Yes. Yeah.
David, I know that earlier on you were mentioning that you worked with a really exceptional occupational therapy student, and I wondered if you perhaps just take a couple of minutes to share your experiences of that as well.
Yeah. He was. He was a student, and I was his first patient, and and he. And what was great about him was that he just had this wonderful enthusiasm. So he was so excited I was his first patient. And he kept saying, you're my first patient. And it was that sort of enthusiasm that I found really endearing, because it made me feel like he was so keen to make a difference. And when he explained something, he was so earnest about it. He said, okay, today we're going to do, and I want you to pick up these little balls, and no, not like this, but like this, and the way it was so humorous. I don't think he realized that he was being funny, but and I was saying to Liz earlier, there was this exercise he got me to do. It's hysterical. Someone had bought me a tin of biscuits, and it's only when you're disabled you realise how these sort of things can be such a problem. So of course someone took the tin off, but you know that irritating plastic that holds the biscuit. So my hand's like this, and I'm trying to get in and pick this biscuit up, but the hand won't do what I want to do, so it keeps going like this. And he's saying, you're okay, you're doing well, and the hand was going everywhere. And then eventually it was a bit like one of these, what do you call it? Fun fair games, It was a bit like a claw, and I managed to get the biscuit. And I got hold of the biscuit was, and then of course I then had to eat it. This was the task, you see. And the arm wouldn't do what it was supposed to do. And then eventually I cheated, and I went, like that. And he said, that's okay, you did really well. But it was that type of interaction. So we had lots of fun, and within that fun there was obviously very specific exercises that he was giving me to do. But it was great. Yeah, he was highly motivated. He was very keen to see me progress. He was very good at giving feedback. But when I didn't do stuff particularly well, he was also okay. If something didn't work, some exercise wasn't working, he'd then leave it. He'd say, okay, well, we'll leave that one. Let's try another one. And he'd bring something else in. So I then wasn't feeling, I'm useless at this. I can't do this. So he was very good. He was very, very good. And then later, I ran into him some months later in the hospital, and he said, "You were my first patient." So yeah.
It's a dangerous strategy to use, though.
Yeah.
Actually, you're my first patient.
Yes,
You took it well.
Yeah, no, I took it well. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I was quite interested there. You're actually looking at the interaction with somebody and how it's actually altering your morale and making you feel better. But in terms of competence, you wouldn't actually. How do you judge the competence of a clinician?
Great question. Great question.
That person's really good at their job, or that person is.
Someone asked me this at another conference, and I said it's a bit like when you're a customer and you go in and you're buying any form of service or product. It's a gut feel you get. And maybe it's just me. I'm very kinesthetic, so I interact with the world through my feelings. I'm a very sort of feeling person. So I get a kind of real feeling of, yes, this feels good, or no, this doesn't feel good at all. This person doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're not quite sure what they're doing. So I get either a very light feeling at the top of my chest, or I get this really anxious feeling in the pit of my stomach. So that's my convincers, if that makes sense. Even though I don't know clinically what's going on. I had all sorts of tests, inconceivable tests, to find out why I had this aneurysm that burst. So I went through clinical areas that I didn't even begin to understand. But the way in which the experts, if you like, were dealing with me, gave me a lot of confidence. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. One of the final tests they did, and please help me out with this, is when they inject dye into your brain to check for further aneurysms. Thank you. And it's quite a nasty, because they stick this huge needle, and actually this is a fantastic example. The first consultant, they recommended that I had this, and I was waiting for an hour to see this consultant neurologist. And the temperature in the waiting room was very high, so people were getting very agitated. They'd been waiting for an hour plus. I came in, and he obviously wasn't in a very good state. So he started talking about this angiogram procedure, and he said, I'm still not happy, and I'm still not convinced there are other weaknesses, so we want to test for this. Okay. So we're going to recommend you have this angiogram thingy, and it involves sticking this large needle, and by the way, you can have a stroke. I went, what? He said, yes, there is possibility you could have a stroke. I said, you're kidding me. I said, everything I've been through, you're asking me to have this. No, I said, I'm not having it. And I got really cross. I said, do you realize how much, and I was thinking about all the rehab I'd gone through, and, and the thought of having another stroke. And he said, oh, do you want a second opinion? I said, you're absolutely right, I want a second opinion. And he went, oh, okay, well, I tell you what, he said, I'll write to the consultant.